Hello all. Right, I'm in on a Saturday morning, just briefly dropping in to do a handover on this TZR for a customer, and I thought I'd do a quick video of it because it's got some interesting work, or had some interesting work done to it. This is one of my favourite bikes of all time, TZR 250 3MA reverse cylinder. I've got one of these of my own, but they're Mark V model. This is a 3MA1, the first model of it they ever made. Reverse cylinder because it's completely different to most bikes. The exhausts come out the back there. Well, they do that on a lot of bikes, but the engine here is essentially backwards. We've got the cylinders here, we've got the carburetors at the front, and the exhausts come out right inside the sort of frame area up here and then come under the seat and go out up there. Most bikes of this design traditionally have the cylinders here, the carburetors on the back, then the exhausts come out the front, curl round and go out and underneath. In theory, this is a more efficient design. The air comes in at the front, goes through the cylinders, goes out at the back. Yamaha tried it. It had mixed success, really. One of the biggest issues they had with this is that the way the crank turns down here and the way the carburetor air comes in creates a little sort of pocket where the fuel mixture just puddles. So if you're idling along and you're not really tramping on with the engine, cruising along in traffic or stuck behind a couple of slow vehicles, and then you try to open the bike up, they're very wet, the engine's flooded almost, and it makes them a little bit sort of groggy. You've got to clear them out, loads of blue smoke comes out the back. Then after a couple of runs they fly again. Yamaha never really got over the problem. They did redesign them completely for the later models. They changed even the crankcases to alter how the scavenging, which is how the way they draw the fuel, the excess fuel out of the engine. They tried a lot of things, and then they moved on to the V-twin engine, and by that time this was gone. But some of the unique features, because the exhausts are so short, they make an absolutely amazing sound. They're like a little GP bike. When the power valves open and these bikes get up to some power, they just sound awesome, which is why I've got one. Let's see if it'll fire up one-handed. They make a lovely, deep, grumbly growl sound at low revs. And then when you open up, which I won't do because this engine's cold and just been started, they almost make a grumble like a 4-stroke. And then when you open up, they become a proper 2-stroke. So, what have we done to it? This is going to be quite a long video, by the way. If you start watching it already, don't think we're near the end. When it first came to us, the bike had been modified slightly to try and get some extra power out of it. That had worked, but the fueling was really hard to ride around. It had created quite a sort of lumpy wet area around 5,000 revs, to the point where you had to down gear to get through it and then open up, and the owner was having real trouble with it in that respect. When it was at top end revs, it was flying quite nicely. So when it came in last year, we had a look at trying to get over this. With the standard setup and what we had, we just couldn't. So I suggested to the customer putting an Ignitech ignition box on. That would give us a lot of programming control. These bikes have these air corrector solenoids here. I sort of briefly detailed this in the last video. These are electrical switches that open and close and allow different variations of air mixture into the carburetors to pre-mix the fuel before it goes into the engine. There's a sort of smaller one, a large one, and then a fixed one in the middle, and you can vary the three to alter the amount of air going in. Standard ignition box is not programmable. You can't change anything. With an Ignitech, we can program everything. We can program the ignition advance for the spark, the throttle map. It uses a throttle sensor on this bike to know where the throttle is, so we can reprogram the throttle map and how that controls those little air solenoids. So we can change the air mixture at different points in the RPM, and we can change where the power valves on the engine open and shut. They're the exhaust valves that open at higher revs to change the exhaust shape and allow more power. So we've got a lot more flexibility, and it gives us the chance to try and remove or reduce this sort of wet area it was struggling with mid-throttle. Which, last year that didn't succeed, unfortunately, because the Ignitech came, we put it on, and it didn't work. And we lost power and we lost control of the engine really and what we're doing. It turns out the software that was in it just wasn't right. I've got a different software file for it now. We've put the Ignitech box back on. So the customer brought it back in this year. He took it away last year with the standard Yamaha box still on it. He brought it back in this year. We refitted the box that we bought last year, but I changed the software, modified it, put a better setup into it, and it worked much better straight away. Now he's coming for it very soon, so I might just get a chance to go through. But these are the dyno curves of what we've done to it. So these show you what the engine's doing and what you're working with right from the start. This is how it came into us last year. So this is the brake horsepower curve of the engine. This is measured, this is estimated crank horsepower, so what the engine's actually producing rather than the rear wheel horsepower. People who know dynoing would know the sort of difference between those, but just to let everybody know, this is crank horsepower. So the brake horsepower is coming up, having a big dive there, which is this sort of 5,000 spot, the area the owner was struggling with, and then climbing on again and making good power at the peak, and then the standard ECU shuts the ignition off there, which we're looking at about 10,500 RPM. This line down here is the fueling. It's measuring the exhaust emissions, a bit all over the place down here, and then just bouncing around as the revs rise. So nothing to worry about fueling up here, a little bit iffy here, but this spot here was what the owner was really struggling to ride around. So when it came into us this year, I did a standard run again. This sheet we're looking at now actually has two different runs on it. A run is where we take the bike from low revs to full revs and we see what power it's doing. So this line here, the bluish line, if you can make the colour out that drops there, is essentially a mimic of the earlier runs that we were doing, but we call this a baseline. When it comes in, we do a run and we want to know what we're dealing with at the start, so we know what we've got at the finish. After the Ignitech was fitted and changed, we've now got this red line above it. So the dip's gone, we're making more power all the way through, and then we're not just making more peak power, we're then over revving. The engine doesn't shut off like this one, it carries on and goes on. That's quite nice if you're overtaking something and you're just at max revs and you don't realise. Instead of the engine suddenly dying underneath you, it just lets you rev on and you realise, oh god, I've got to change gear. On track, this is just the little area where if you were racing the bike, you might use that just to push on into a corner before changing gear. These two lines down here are the torque curves. Brake horsepower, this figure that we're getting on these two lines, is actually a calculation of torque multiplied by the engine RPM. So as the revs of the engine rise here, if you multiply torque by RPM that you're doing, you create this line up here. Brake horsepower as a thing doesn't actually exist. Torque does. That's the turning force that the engine's developing, and it can be measured. So torque is one good line. Torque can drop like here, but the revs are still rising. So sometimes you'll actually get a torque line coming down, but because the revs are rising quite quickly, the brake horsepower line will still go up. Sorry if I'm boring everybody. So that's what we've got. So the red line here is what we're sending the bike out with today. It's a really nice curve all the way through. The fueling underneath has barely changed. It's a little bit weaker just in this area here, but that's not an issue for the engine. It's lower in its rev range, and that's just on full power when you're open the throttle, sorry, fully wide. And it's just variation between temperature and dyno runs. If we do a part throttle run and we're on semi-throttle, we can measure this area here using the dyno and we know that we're safe. The fueling line there is safe, I'm happy with it. So the owner's coming to pick it up, he's going to ride it home, hoping that he'll notice a massive difference in how it rides. Road riding characteristics are really important. Flat out wide open fueling curves on dyno runs are great for showing big numbers and showing what the engine can produce. But in a real world, it's not how we ride them. You might only be on full throttle very short amounts of time just as you're trying to accelerate to something. You spend most of your time at about one-third to one-half throttle, either cruising, sticking at the speed you're at, stuck behind something. So that's the area of the throttle that you really want to get right. It makes a bike from something nice and comfortable to ride, or if it's set up badly, into something that's just annoying and difficult to ride. So hopefully that's what we've done with this little bike. The owner's going to take it home today. He lives in York, it's not too far a ride, and then hopefully we'll get some feedback from him, see what he thinks to it and see what he likes. I've been out for some test rides on it and I can tell straight away it's so much better than it was, so hopefully he agrees.